What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the PONDCast. My name is Justin Skaggs, and this is being brought to you by Webs Online. So if you guys are new to the podcast, what we try to do here is we try to get a broad understanding of the pond world. So that's both new tech, old tech, biomechanics. We talk to professionals in the industry, and that's actually what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be talking to Scott Warrick from West Coast Water Gardens. And he actually originated in Ohio, I believe, and we'll get into that in a moment. And now he's over on the West Coast. So what I wanted to know today, anyway, is what's the difference between those two industries? I mean, over here you have nothing but, heat and a lack of rain. And then in Ohio, obviously, they're right parallel to Pennsylvania, so they get the same kind of wintry mess that we get. So you're talking about fall shutdowns, spring openings. I'm gonna let him get into that, but this is going to be the first of many conversations we have with Scott because, the West Coast pond industry is something that's a little interesting to me, something I don't get to see or talk about all the time, and I really want to crack this egg. So without further ado, let's get to our interview with Scott. So Scott, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you coming in, and I'm really interested in one particular point. You've done this business on both, the East Coast, arguably the Midwest, if you want to get technical about Ohio, and the West Coast in California. And I have to believe that those are two basically completely different business structures, right?
Yeah, the type of client you're dealing with, and just in terms of to use a base expression, deep pockets, that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, a little bit deeper pockets in California, I'm assuming.
Way deeper pockets, generally speaking. And the other thing is the climate difference. You simply couldn't do what I do here year-round in Ohio or in the Midwest. You're strapping on a snowplow, like Mr. Plow through the winter, or hibernating. It's your choice. Finding some other sort of hustle. Of
course, yeah. Did you, tell us a little bit about your business in general. Did it start in Ohio, or did you generally form a completely new entity when you moved to California?
Yeah, completely new entity upon moving out here. The seeds got sowed in Ohio. The rural background I grew up with, so I'd always had sort of a fascination, obsession with aquaculture. But it really didn't start until early 2000s when my very last place living in Ohio, there was in a garden that was in ruins at the townhouse I lived in, and I resurrected it with a particular focus on the water feature that existed there. Attached a waterfall to it, and it just sort of sowed the seeds for, I knew I was planning on moving to California, but I wasn't exactly sure where I would land vocationally speaking. And I knew I didn't want to continue with the starving artist lifestyle, so...
eventually you have to put some bread in your belly, right? So...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that stuff, it's not cute anymore once you're in your 30s, So,
no, it's not. It's not.
So, so that sort of just, it basically, created a vision for me, like a very tangible vision, goal, and a modified dream, if you will. So I came out here with a very different set of expectations than most of the people who come out for entertainment industry related stuff. Yeah.
So you mentioned the fact that there's obviously a different economic situation for your average run-of-the-mill customer from state to state, and I think you could find that even from here in Pennsylvania. I think and correct me if I'm wrong. So that you have a customer in California. You might get someone who is, just an average Joe who wants a pond in their backyard out here in Pennsylvania or in Ohio. But you're not going to probably find your average Joe in California in that culture over there who's then worried about having a pond fixture. So more of your clients are likely just to happen to have been, better off, more, well-to-do clients. Is that probably the cause? I mean, I'm just taking a stab here.
Well, it actually pretty much runs the full spectrum. And some of my most adored clients are seniors who are on fixed income. So, but what I do notice is that people are less inclined to to do the work, and particularly the maintenance or whatever themselves out here, which is fine for me.
Yeah, I'm sure you don't mind at all.
No, the only challenge is how could I word this diplomatically? The labor market out here is pretty much governed, on this end of things by it's structured based around migrant worker wages, and so that it's like I have to have like a niche, like a certain client that kind of gets what I do, and values paying a little more and getting quite a bit more versus just having like a very fixed base number in mind that they're willing to pay, and generally those clients, when I see with their gardeners, pool people and everything, they're typically always unhappy and complain about what they get, but they're not willing to pay $1 more.
Right.
And again, that price point is established for using that type of labor, so it's kind of hard to contend with at the time. In fact, it's one of the primary reasons I moved away from building things, because it was hard to be competitive as a one-man band, not only in terms of the time it would take to execute an installation, but just in terms of, again, that competitive price point. So
tell me what in your opinion, being over on the West Coast and especially in California, which region of California are you in?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Okay. Ecologically, what's like the number one issue over there? Like, with that someone from the Northeast may not contend with, that they don't really understand.
Well, the fact that you don't have to overwinter your pond, there's no off season. I mean, even during the winter, it dips down into the 40s at night, but the median temperature of the pond water is in the low 50s. So at worst, you have to scale back feeding of the fish, but there's no de-icer, there's no overwintering the filter. There's no lapse in service. It just kind of continues onward, and that's probably the biggest thing to contend with. There aren't really any sort of ecological caveats that are challenging environmental hazards. And this is one of the few places in the country where I could do this year round. I mean, you can do it in Florida, but you can also have your pond sort of invaded by alligators and pythons and things like that. Yeah. So
Florida's a completely weird place, man. The second you create an ecosystem, you're just inviting. It's like our Australia. You know what I mean? It's like the place inside of the country where things can actually kill you. So
yeah, it's crazy, and and to reference that TV show, that Pawn Stars, I was watching them do installations in Florida that were Everglades adjacent. And I'm really? You're not going to put forth any disclaimers about, the unwanted guests that you may wake up to in the morning, and then everything down here will eat your koi, and it's not even 3 feet. Your pond's not even 3 feet deep, and a little cave's not going to provide shelter for your fish for more than the first 6 months.
Well, it sounds like maybe you got a good business going on in Florida. You're the only person who's, hey, I could save your koi.
Don't build a pond here, and if you build a pond here, don't go near it. I remember when I was I had 10 years old, visiting my aunt and uncle who lived down there, and they had a pond with game fish in it, and I had explicit warnings where I could never even fish there unattended, because I was still young enough to be snatched by a wayward alligator who might show up. So, I mean, that's the fire ants are just the beginning down there.
Yeah,
it's a whole different world.
It's funny how everyone retires down there. I'm like, it's the deadliest place you could go. But so I honestly, I thought you were going to say the drought. I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say that the water down there is a big issue.
That is a big issue, and when we had the drought warnings, I think that they ended officially 2 years ago. The governor act where all of a sudden, because it rained one year, we're a new climate. Go back to watering with impunity. But yeah, that was a big issue. I had people. There were a couple people who eliminated their accounts, took their fountains or ponds away because, they just felt like it was an egregious use of water, and I get it.
Yeah.
But that was the one thing I didn't consider when I moved here, that this could all go away if it stops raining. But framed correctly, as I'd heard stated before, we don't have a water problem, we have a salt problem, because we live right next to the sea with rising sea levels, and there hasn't been the political will yet to figure out how to economically take the salt out of the sea and just have an infinite resource there. So
and it's funny what kind of industries can actually touch your own, right? Well, I think this has been a really eye-opening, insight to kind of what you deal with on a daily basis versus, especially just having A, things year-round, B, dealing with the government and the drought, and then vis-a-vis the client's reaction to it and thinking that it's actually an egregious use of water. And then in addition to that, having just consistent work and dealing with the economics of that region. So I appreciate your insight into this matter. And would you mind if we reached out to you, or if you have any cool stories about what's going on with your business, and maybe we could talk another time?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, and where can people find you guys?
Easiest way to find me is westcoastwatergardens.com, my website. I'm old school, so I don't do social media. Get enough stuff to to manage and distract.
There you go.
Me, so yeah, that's the best way to contact me anytime.
All right, guys. Well, we will put his website right down below, and if you're in the region, I highly recommend that you use his services. And thank you again for your time, man. Have a great day.
You bet.
Take care. Well, that was interesting. I really want to take some time and thank Scott for carving out some time for us today. I think it was 9 o'clock his time on a Monday when we filmed this, so that's certainly no small feat when you own a small business. If you guys have a small pond company, or a large pond company, or a pond company of any varying size, and you think you have an interesting story or interesting take that most of the greater water garden world would be interested in, I want to invite you to email me at PONDCast@websonline.com. And until next time, guys, take care and enjoy your pond.